Welcome to the Model Rail Replacement Podcast, helping you get to your onward journey. A friendly service that helps you get from A to B, or probably nowhere at all.
Hello and welcome to the Model Rail Replacement Podcast, Season 2, Episode 4, or of a wacky way of thinking about it, Episode 25. I'm your host, James, and with me is co-host and producer.
Sam. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Sam. You weren't looking for a YouTube shout out just then and were distracted, were you?
I definitely wasn't. My YouTube shout out has been prepared for months at this point.
Is that like dog year months?
Oh, I mean, you just watch so many YouTube videos sometimes, and then you go, "Oh, I've already shouted that out." I've already shouted that out. So I'm doing that sort of like just trying to find
Yeah,
one I haven't shouted out already.
yeah. That's why I've been listing them in our episode plans of what ones I was going to shout out. Because one, you can't nick it, and two, I'll forget. So. And then you're like, oh, I should have. Oh, I can't remember. Anyway, that's our floor planning for our show and how we just really do wing this. But otherwise, how are you? What have you been up to?
Yeah, I'm very good. I have hobby-wise, now that I'm in the house, I've got settled a little bit. I've got the fiddle yard, which was my big uh, that was my big I need to get done section. I've managed to extend the fiddle yard areas, so they've both curved round to the front, and I've connected up the bridge section, so I have a little bit of extra space to run trains, which is quite a nice little photo point on the layout, and I'm quite enjoying it. And you get to run a sound fitted train out the fiddle yard up to the end of the bridge, stop, go back, and stuff like that. And you're sort of getting to test your points as well. So that's been fun. I've also finally started weathering again now that I'm back in the new house. So there are a couple of bits of people who are like, "Can you take this on?" And I said, "I'm about to move house, so I can take it on, but it might be quite some time." And they were like, "Yeah, that's fine. Time's not an issue." So I finally managed to crack on with that as well. How about yourself? What have you been up to?
I've nearly finished the secret project, which I think I can reveal in next week's episode, maybe. But yeah, apart from that, I don't think I've done much else. I've sort of think I've had a bit of a modelling burnout anyway, so I've come to the garage a couple of times to do things and just sort of ended up just sitting there watching the telly and not doing anything and just can't really be asked.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think I've just sort of burnt myself out a bit. I think so. I'm just taking it chill. So I got the secret project, which is kind of time sensitive that needs finishing, but that should be all polished up and done today, and then I can start putting the video together, which will be out on YouTube probably the second week of October, I reckon. But
Hmm.
I need to double check on dates. I think 9th of October, I think is what I'm aiming for.
Nice. I think with hobby burnout, it's really easy to do. And I think you told me in our little chat, and I said, I've sort of had the same thing. I spent so much time trying to get the fiddle yard up and running that now I've done it. I'm like, I do need to finish the loop so I can actually run trains properly constantly. I said, but I just hit this point where I was like, oh, I'm a little bit done at the moment. And then after we had that conversation, I suddenly got a small urge to start doing stuff again. But yeah, the hobby burnout can hit sometimes when you least want it as well.
Yeah, it's the wrong time of year. It's model railway season. It all kicks off in September, and we go into the winter with our those long drawn out nights, and at least you got a hobby to do. And yeah, at the moment, I'm just a bit like, I can't be asked.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's yeah. I think one of the problems is I probably have too many projects on the go, so I can never keep on something. I need to get back onto the boys' layout and wire it up because he's been very patient. In fairness to him, waiting for this to go. All the tracks down, it's just not connected, so we can't run anything on it. And it's sort of been put on the back burner whilst I've been doing this other project. Yeah, I'll probably get back onto that, I reckon, and then I might start looking at something 009-ish. The OO is just I'm just quite happy with it just being two loops of track and a fiddle yard at the moment, and just running stuff around when I feel like it. It's
That's good though. It's nice that you can do that and you're happy with that. And then it'll get to a point where you go, I need to do something on it, and you can. Like the fact that you're able to run trains and do the main part of playing trains or running trains or like however you want to say it, you're able to achieve that, and I think that's one of the best bits.
Yeah, it has been good because it's sort of it helps me come to that realization because it's so easy in planning stage to get carried away, and I think I quite often get quite carried away with ideas, plans, and so I have like these grand schemes of how it's going to go around the room and go under here and go over there, and yeah, as I say, I've just been running the two loops around. I've sort of been playing with it, and I just kind of realized when yeah, if I want to do that, it's going to be quite taxing to run it, especially if I'm doing it by myself. And I know I could look into computer aided control, but I kind of want to avoid that because that's what I do at work, and I don't want. I mean, I kind of see work as part of the hobby, and it's quite nice to get paid to do your hobby, kind of sort of thing. But I always enjoyed working in the panel on the buttons much more than I do working on the computer, and you know with the automatic route setting, sort of doing the majority of your work. So yeah, I've always been kind of against putting that on my model railway and having it at home as well. Although I do watch some people's videos and think it's quite cool when it's all automated and the trains go around. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of something I don't want to cross at the moment, I think. So yeah, running it like that, I've sort of come to realise like I've got too much rolling stock. The plan's probably a bit too big. I probably just need to reduce the idea, just sort of do this. So yeah, I think I'll just stick to the two loops for now. Just run it round and sort of finalise what I'm going to actually do.
It's a good way of looking at it, and hopefully you get that mojo back. But that doesn't mean we're not happy to talk about trains each week. Just to clarify.
No, I've had enough of it. I don't want to talk trains. Let's talk Star Wars.
I don't know enough about it. I know enough about the bulk of it, and I don't know much after that.
Excellent stuff. I can teach you. Right then. So it doesn't start in order. Um, oh well, yeah, we'll stick to trains. Um, I could start a Star Wars podcast, but I imagine that it's quite well catered for already. So yeah, probably just leave that one. Shall we move on to news?
Yes, let us move on to news.
Okay. So first of the week is good old Akira Scale with another announcement, who are bringing back the ICI Bogey limestone hoppers, which were produced with patents a few years ago, and I think they're like hen's teeth these days if you're after them. So they are returning to Akira Scale's Moving Britain range, and they look very nice indeed. It was a very nice model. I think they're quite limited in if you're a sort of prototypical serious model, they might be a bit more limited in where you can and can't run them. But yeah, there's I think they're going to be sold in 15 twin packs. They're going to be offering 5 packs each of 3 eras. So 50s to 73, 73 to 92, and 92 to 97. And they will be priced at 79.95 per pack, with their usual offer of 10% off for buying 2 and 15% off when you buy 5 or more. So yeah, that's them. I like them. I think they're quite smart. And there's usually if you look for them, there's photos of usually a pair of 37s on the front as well, which always makes it far more appealing, I think.
Yeah, they're a weird looking wagon. Like I wouldn't be able to place what era they'd be in. So go on, give me an idea. When would you see them?
I think they were introduced around the 1950s. They've got an LMS sort of style about them.
Hmm.
Um, I'm trying to think of the LMS bogey wagon that they look similar to, but off the top of my head, I'm not that sure. But yeah, I mean, when you just read the blurb about them, it says the wagons have seen a variety of traction over the years, being hauled by LMS and BR 4F and 8F locomotives, followed by the Sousa Type 2s, which is your 24 to 25s, into the 1980s. Pairs of Class 20s were trialled from 1982, and by 1985, it's seen some braking modifications. Yeah, it moves on to the 20 stroke 3s, apparently, 1986. So, yeah, 37s are in that list as well. So there's all sorts of locos that worked on. Oh, even the Kobo, Class 28. So yeah, built between 1952 to 1958. They're a very old wagon, but they've obviously lasted the test of time running right up to 1997. I think they were withdrawn.
Oh, very nice. So it completely plausible you could buy these because I always feel like when a Cura scale and offer the costing for these wagons is good, and then when you start buying more of them, it becomes even better. And I feel like, I mean, for me, it's waiting for a wagon that I specifically want and a Cura scale to produce for me to go, boom, I'm going to drop X amount of money to buy a big rake of those wagons. And I think for me, the wagons they brought out are ones that I've never needed. Whilst I may sit here and go, "Oh, that's nice, I want it." I do try to have this semblance of I don't need it, so I don't buy it, and then I regret it 6 years later or two months later, depending on when you speak to me. But
You're referring to the Yeoman and ARC wagons, aren't you, of the
yeah,
PTAs?
yeah, I am. I'm referring to those. Um, so yeah, it's
I'm really sorry. I sold mine to my dad.
that's okay. Um, but yeah, they are really nice looking wagons, and they've got that same distinctive thing of they're different to the other wagons. So you can have rakes of various different things running around with different styles. So you can fulfill many needs with a lot of this stuff. And I feel that's like what Akira Scale is doing well with the wagons that they are bringing out and producing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's a nice range building up there. Um, I think it'd be interesting to see like in 10 years' time what their catalogue will be. Um, 'Cause I imagine it could be very impressive in regards to everything they produce. So, I mean, it's quite an impressive catalogue now, but as time marches on, sort of more and more things are produced. It'll be interesting to see where they go.
Yeah, I'm I'm
Um,
I'm intrigued with one of the biggest things about Akira Scale is that they've done some fantastic releases in the past where they've gone, here, we're going to do a second batch of them, and they've already promised a few second batches out there. Um, the Cali Sleeper set has been the one that I'm waiting for the most. But even if they redid their Mark II Bs, I'd probably now at this stage, now that I've sorted out a lot of rakes and bits and bobs, and I'm at a point where I don't need to buy anything else. I have that ability to go, right, well, I can save up for other things now instead. And I'd just be intrigued to see how, because we've had the 37 second batch already, haven't we? Because that was so popular. They did the second batch, and that feels like that's the one that's come around the quickest.
I think the 37 batch was announced before the first lot even landed, if I recall. Because
That would
I
make sense.
remember, I think I originally put an order in for the Dutch one and I changed it to the Colas one. And then later on, they announced the Harry Needle Railroad Orange one. Um, and I'm in an hour in about getting one. And I thought, yeah, I will get one. And it was just at the time the first batch landed and you went on the website and everything had sold out. Everyone had just been so amazed by batch one. Batch two that was it. You were pretty much, oh, it's all gone. So,
Decimated. It
yeah,
was decimated.
it
Um,
was.
so yeah, I mean, I'm always excited about what Akira Scale are going to announce next. I feel out of all of the manufacturers, I'm most excited about Akira Scale. I think that's because they're new enough that they're not necessarily going to be redoing everything straight away.
Mm.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, I feel like I'm excited now every time Bachman make an announcement because I find there's more and more things that I'm like, actually, if you could bring this back, great. Or something new and me go, ooh, I really like that. That's also great. I'm at a point in my model railway hobby where things are exciting again and I'm not worried about spending money because I'm picky with what I have. And if something comes out that makes me go, I want to spend money, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I get that. My biggest concern is just the IETs really. They're just creeping up in price for whole. It's just, if you want some more of them for your layout, it's the big long modern trains that don't look right if they're short formed. It,
Yeah.
they're they're my biggest concern.
I mean, we
So,
could have an entire episode about where that where that's going and come across like we're being really bitter and bashing Hornby like a lot of people do, but at the same time, people bash Hornby because of many, many reasons. It's not just one thing that they've done badly. There's a lot of things that don't always. I later on in this episode, I give a little talk about the 14XX and Hornby's what they've done with it or not done with it, and that's definitely one of my biggest bugbears with it. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
before I get on my soapbox,
It's yeah, we do try to be impartial here. It's just but we also make observations.
yeah,
I think that's how we say
on a, on a
we're not saying don't buy Horby. We just talk about our own experiences. So,
yeah, we're not necessarily telling you don't go and shop at this particular manufacturer. Don't get me wrong, I bought a Hornby Sea Cow, one of the new batches of it recently because I went into a shop, it had it in stock. I was like, perfect, I'm going to pick one of those up because I'm a window shopper. I like to see things physically there in front of me for me to go, oh, and I'm more likely to, I don't know about anyone else, I am more likely to spend that little bit more if it's directly in front of me than if I'm browsing on the internet to try and find a good deal, unless it's a ridiculously good deal. But if I see it in front of me, I'll go, oh, I'll purchase that because there's that instant gratification. Whereas if it's online, I sort of do that thing of having it float in a basket for quite some time and then go, nah.
yeah, that's it, isn't it? It's the impulse purchasing. Well, Sam's not here. I'd just like to say that all his views expressed on Horbury are Sam's own, not mine, not mine. It's all Sam. Okay, yeah. So moving on to other manufacturers that have also got announcements this week, and it is Rapido Trains who have announcement number 5, which is a surprise. I thought they were going to have 4, but turns out they got 5, which I'm not complaining about, especially with the loco they've announced. Sam, what have they announced?
So Rapido have announced the Midland Railway Class 483 class, or as some people call it, the 2P.
Yeah, this is absolutely been crying out for a long time. We'll go back into Horby bashing now. Long time to be retooled. It is in the Hornby range, the 2P. It's the old Airfix tooling, which passed on to Dapol, which passed on to Hornby. So yeah, it's been a long time coming. It's not a bad tooling, but it's not as good as today's standards. And what Rapido are offering looks absolutely fantastic. I may have to get that Somerset and Dorset livery one.
I knew that's the
Um,
one you would look at because that's the one I'm looking at.
It looks so good. But then again, I might have to say I've got the 7F in BR black, so it would go with yeah, I think I will have to get one, definitely.
I
They look
think you'd be
absolutely
silly
stunning.
to. I think you'd be silly to not get it in the SDJR.
Yeah, but then I'd have to model the SDJR in that period, and then it's a rabbit hole, you see.
It is. I feel it's a little bit like the SECR in the sense that it is that livery that once it's gone, everyone's chasing. So that beautiful green that you
Yeah,
get.
see, now I'm falling down that rabbit hole as well because I have the is it the O2, the one that's on the Bluebell Railway.
Mm.
So I've ordered it in that livery because, as you say, it's a beautiful livery, and I thought, yeah, I'll just have it on a heritage railway. And then they've got to announce those coaches. I was like, that would look nice. Those coaches behind that loco. Oh, I know what I should do. I should get the P class that Curaçao are doing in that livery as well. Then I can have a nice little scene. And it's just too easy to fall down these rabbit holes. And then, yeah, if I get the SDJR blue. Because as I was saying, one of my ideas for a layout is I think I may have mentioned to you this once before, and I went down this route of just building one big layout. And I'm going back to the idea of if I just build a fiddle yard that's permanent, and then I just have scenic boards that I swap round, therefore I can model whatever I like. So I could do a modern day layout, got a bit bored of that, take the scenic boards off, and put the scenic boards on of a steam layout. And then sort of the world's your oyster that way kind of thing.
Mm.
But that sounds like it's going to end up being very expensive, and then there'd be no limit to what you can order because you go, well, I'll just build some new boards for it. So
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And I too looked at the SDJR livery on it, and I mean it looks great in the red as well, the crimson. It looks really good in the black as well. Like I looked at the email that came through on it, and all of the colors look great. I think because it's an iconic and not done as often livery, I'd go for the SDJR on it, but
yeah,
all of them look great.
I mean, if you look at the email, they're even showing it off with their new coaches behind it in the rendering, haven't they? So there's definitely some planning's been thought there by the marketing department, most certainly. But yeah, they're offering, I think, 12 liveries. Starting off with the Midland Railway, going all the way through to British Railways, plain back with the Lake Crest. They do look absolutely stunning. And Rapido are obviously very, very sort of high end when it comes to their models. So these, I think, are going to look absolutely brilliant when they arrive. That's all our news for the day. I'm trying to see if they're going to announce any prices, but I can't see any prices there.
I can tell you prices. So the RRP for the DC Ready version is £209.95. However, if you buy it from one of the well-known online stores that are available, you can get it for £178.45, which is a massive discount. Alternatively, if you want the DCC sound version, it's £319.95, with once again a reduction to £271.95 if you choose to buy it from one of the massive online retailers.
There you go. Or alternatively, support your local model shop and order it there. Just saying. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Midland engines. We're here to talk about Great Western engines, because this week it's the GWR round of Fight Club. Let's get to it.
Look at that. You see that there? The super shiny diesel loco that's coming this way. Yeah, I see it. Isn't it beautiful? So fresh, so clean, like it's straight out of the box. I mean, yeah, it's nice, but I prefer it to have a used look to it. In an ideal world, that would be nice. But I'm sure the owner doesn't have the confidence, skill or time to undertake such a job. Then why don't they just send it to Emperor's Path? Emperor's Path? Yeah. SBJ has years of experience in model railways and wargaming, the ability to meet your weathering needs, and works with you during the whole process to ensure the project is how you want it, not like it's come through a factory. Come on, that must cost a fortune. Not really. He offers different levels of weathering at really affordable prices. I've got my whole fleet weathered by him. My loco's got the full treatment, whilst my rolling stock just a dusting with the airbrush, and it looks really authentic. I might just get a quote. How do I contact him? You get him on Instagram at emperors_path, by Facebook, Emperor's Path, or emperorspathcontact@gmail.com. Emperor's Path Weathering. If it's not filthy, let's change that.
It's back, the fight you've all been waiting for, ending last season with Sam taking the Midland round, James drawing level on Sam's home turf of Southern, and then taking the lead on Eastern Territory. Now it's James's home ground as we go for the Great Western round. The flip of the coin put James in the advantage of picking first, but who will come out on top as we battle Pokemon style locomotive against locomotive? The rules are simple. 5 rounds based on 5 categories of tank or shunter, freight loco, mixed traffic, passenger, and anything goes. Each locomotive must have at least one ready-to-run example in existence. No loco can be used more than once. Players must argue why they think their loco is the best. There's also the bonus gamble round, in which we pitch an example of locomotive we think should be in ready-to-run. Anything picked must have been either with or built by the GWR between 1923 and 1948. Sam, cue battle music. Okay, round 1, tank or locomotive shunter. Sam, what have you gone for?
Okay, I'm starting strong from my point of view. For my shunter or tank locomotive, I've gone for what is more commonly known as the 14XX tank engine, but when introduced was the 4800 class. A little bit of information for you. Introduced in 1932, 75 were built, designed by Charles Collett. The wheelbase is an 042 tank engine design. The 4800 was designed as a more modern version of the Class 517. The first was built at Swindon Works and entered service in 1932. These engines were fitted with auto-train equipment that separates them from the similar 5800 class. Four examples have made it to preservation. Models produced in ready-to-run, these locos have been produced by Dapol in N gauge. Airfix, Dapol, and Hornby have shared the 00 gauge tooling, and Hattons have produced their own in conjunction with DJM. Dapol have announced a new version in 00 gauge to hit the shelves next year. In O gauge, Dapol have also got it covered there. James, what are you bringing to the table?
But I struggle with this one because the Great Western have so many beautiful tank engines. But I have gone for the Prairie. I thought I was going to say Panya. It's small Prairie, to be precise. The 457 class, just to narrow it down. They were introduced in 1906. 75 were built, and they were designed by George Jackson Churchwood. The wheelbase is of 262, which is the Prairie arrangement. Now, this is where you need to pay attention because Great Western locos evolve. The 4575 is an update of the 4500 class, which was a development of the 4400 class. Designed as a small mixed traffic locomotive, mainly used on branch lines, some were fitted with auto apparatus to work push-pull trains in South Wales. 11 members of the class made it into preservation. An interesting fact is that 5521 was shipped to Poland in 2007 to take part in a parade and briefly piloted the Orient Express. They are produced in N gauge and is supplied by Dapol. In OO gauge, it was produced by Lima, which is one of the reasons I've chose this loco, as it was one of the first steam engines I had when I was younger. It ran terribly, and I believe it is still in the loft at my mum and dad's house. I think my dad still has it. Uh, Bachmann also produced this loco, repeat their own production of the 4400 class in OO gauge, and Dapol have produced it 4500 in O gauge. So that's my choice. Who are we going for?
For me, the 1400 or the 14XX is my quintessential favorite steam loco of all time. It has always, always been my favorite. I loved it from the days it was introduced in the Thomas series as Oliver. Um, and the story that followed it along with that is very much one of my favorites. And it was a case of the second that came out in the Ertl range, I had to have it. It's the first locomotive that was purchased for me by my wife. We basically, she bought it for me when she could get the urge that I wanted to get back into trains way back in 2013, I think it was. And it has all, whilst the model has never been the best model in the world, and anyone who's ever had one knows that you either suffer with the traction tires or you suffer with the fact that it doesn't have enough weight and enough pickups to actually get it to move consistently. But regardless of that, it's my favorite steam loco ever. And I will probably find it quite difficult whilst the prairie's nice. I will find this one probably the most difficult to give up on.
Yeah, I could see your point. There's definitely a lot of passion there. I do like the 14XX as well. And as I say, it was a very difficult round because I think, as I say, Great Western make many lovely tank engines. Um, the most famous obviously being the Panya. And it is quite a hard choice. But yeah, I always like that shape of the Prairie. It's the just seems the right size engine. It's not too big, it's not too small. The fact that it can be used on a branch line, and whenever you see a Great Western model railway at an exhibition, if it's got a Prairie on it, it's just that's the loco I want to focus on when I'm filming because it does. It just I don't know. There's something about that shape. I think they look so beautiful. But yeah, I do also do like the 14XX, and I have similar love for it in the same way that it was Oliver, which was the engine in the book. That so I had one of those WH Smith's big annuals, and Oliver the Western engine was in there, and he was never in the TV series until I think I was about 8 or 9. So when I was growing up, and he was one of those elusive engines that I knew existed, but he was never there. So yeah, I can see the love for the 14XX, and I did suspect you'd go for it. And you definitely spoke of it with a lot of passion. I mean, as I say, I had that Prairie by Lima. I remember going to the shop. It was MR and ME, which was a bit of an unusual shop. It was in Kempston, but it was in a garage around the back of someone's house. So it was yeah, it was kind of an unusual shop, and I remember it being in the second-hand section. And I don't know why I got it, but I got it for some reason. And I got it home, but yeah, it never ran brilliantly. But I don't think Lima Steam Engines ever did. So
I, what's beautiful about the Pro? So anyone who's listened to our previous battles know that I love a large tank engine. I think it is the best idea of being able to have a larger engine on a small layout or a steam-based layout. And whilst I've never personally owned a Prairie, I can see why people love them. Um, and it's one of those locos that I think a lot of people forget does have a London Transport livery version of it as well, and that looks stunning. Seeing it in the London Transport livery because I think that's a nice livery anyway.
hmm.
Um, I think you see more prairies in the real world because they're more widely available. Because I believe until, I mean, when Daypol announced their 14XX revival, I went through the roof. I was so happy. And the fact that they managed to get a sound fitted version, I instantly went for it. I I think the actual ready to run model of the 14XX is rubbish in terms of it just there's so many bad things about it. And even when Hornby re-released it, I'm quotation marks re-released it a year or two ago, they didn't fix any of the problems with it. And the thing that you thought might have saved it is because it's such an old tooling, it still had traction tires, it didn't have a DCC ready version. And it's one of those ones that I can't understand why in this day and age didn't have NEM pockets, and it still has to this day that Airfix sort of mechanism where you can change the couplings over to smaller versions. But I don't understand why it hadn't been fitted with NEM couplings at this point. Like it's such an old model, and it feels like Hornby was milking people on this model with none of the benefits of bringing it up to the modern age. So if we're talking ready to run models, the Prairie wins. If we're talking about the best loco out of the two, I feel like the 14XX has to win. So what's your thoughts?
Well, you see, you just got the example of the Airfix Daypol Hornby pass it on tooling, but you've also got the Hatton's DGM combo, which was a lot nicer looking. I think it still had its flaws, but yeah, and also Daypol obviously got you covered in O gauge and N gauge. I think we have more 14XXs in this house than any other loco between me and the boy.
I think
Because
you've
I've
got them
got
in three gauges, haven't you?
no, I tried. He was tempted to get one an N-gauge the other day, but he opted for an Ivet tank engine in the end, which was surprised me. But that's what he wanted. But yeah, I've got two in OO. He's got one in OO, and then I've got that O gauge one as well. So just the one Prairie. I think maybe the 14XX wins on this one because I do have a soft spot for them as well. So I'll give you
I
that one.
I do agree with you though. Out of all of the rounds, in terms of trying to pick your favorite, I feel like the tank engine in Shunter was the hardest by far out of all of them because there's other ones where maybe there's not, as you'll find, there's not as many options available in some of the other categories as there are the tank engine and the Shunter, and there's so many good ones. And you've already mentioned the Pania, you've got the 14XX. Like they are two of the most famous, I'd say, because of the Thomas series. But then you've got some of the other locos that are out there that Great Western have produced that are just famous locos, and no surprises we're going to be talking about some of them. But I think that this was the hardest round out of all of them because of the sheer volume that you can pick.
Oh yeah, definitely. And yeah, like you say, there's so many, and it spreads right from a shunting engine all the way to you got your big heavy coal engines that South Wales used to have, which I think was the 7200 class off the top of my head,
Mm,
7200 and the 4200, and they are big tank engines, and they look absolutely wonderful. But yeah, we'll give that one to the 1400 class for the
thank you.
round of shunter and tank engine. Cool. Right. That's round one. Round two, freight engine. Sam, what have you gone for?
Okay, so there's a theme with every single one of my freight locos, I believe, based on previous experience. I have gone for the Dean Goods or the 2301 class. Information. Introduced in 1883, 260 were built, designed by William Dean, with a wheelbase of, you guessed it, 060. Breaking Great Western Railway tradition, this loco design had inside frames only. The first 20 were originally domeless, and you never trust a domeless engine. They had a long existence, 46 making it to BR, and one had made it into preservation. They were utilised by the Rail Operation Division in World War One and the War Department in World War Two. These acquisitions resulted in some engines going as far as Greece, France, East Germany, Austria, and China. Produced in double O gauge by Hornby, Bachmann Mainline, and Oxford Rail. James, what have you gone for?
Um, okay, so when I was writing this script, it happens a couple of times, but you have a thing for the not only same wheelbases, but the same year for a type of engine. So your Great Western choice was produced in the same year as your LNER choice. That was something I noticed, and you do it again later on.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So yeah, you obviously like the goods engines of 1883. And my choice is, and I think it's the most beautiful one, probably the most beautiful freight engine you could probably find, and that's the 2800 class. And these were introduced in 1903. There was 84 built, designed by George Jackson Churchwood, with a wheelbase of 280. So these were designed for heavy freight trains. Then they were the first 2.8 locos in Britain. Their main use was hauling the heavy coal trains from the South Wales coalfields, but these locos were the Great Western's main freight loco, and therefore were used all over the network, venturing off to many of the faraway sheds. If I do recall, there's a little box on them that has a notebook where they had to write down the last time it had a boiler washout, just because they never went back to their home shed as often as other engines. Six of them made it into preservation, and they are available in model form in N gauge by Dapol, in OO gauge by Hornby, and a new tooling is to be produced by Dapol. That's my choice. That's your choice. Wasn't surprised in the slightest that you went for the 060.
I think I know why, and this is unrelated. I know why I always pick that 060 freight loco kind of thing. And I think it's because, I mean, harking back to Thomas era stuff. So if you're not a Thomas fan, sorry. I always loved Donald and Douglas. And I always found, and you might be able to correct me if I'm wrong on this, there's not a model available of the Donald and Douglas engine in Double O.
There is the Rails of Sheffield produced one 2, 3 years ago,
Oh, okay.
with Bachmann, but yeah, before that there wasn't.
Yeah. And I always love those engines. And to me, the 060 tender engines very much look like those. And I think it's why I like them. I love that it's got that very early Steam era part of it, but it still sits and works in the normal quotation mark Steam era of the times absolutely fine. And it's why I think a lot of the freight locomotives that come up for me are usually the 060 tender engines. Um, I think they look beautiful. On the other hand, I absolutely love the 2800 class. I think it's great. And I think it was our LNER episode where we did the locos we wish to see. We had I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. We had the loco that I said looked like the Flying Scotsman, but
But your
um,
P1, wasn't it?
yeah, and it had the smaller wheels that are traditional with, especially in European, like the smaller wheels. And I feel like this locomotive especially looks like a quintessential Great Western loco that's been put on those tiny wheels, and it just suits it so well. And I've got when we do these, I have pictures of both locos that are running in the same class against each other up on the screen, and I've got a black and white picture of the 2800 class, and it's just got this huge freight working behind it, and it looks absolutely stunning. And this isn't going to be the first time I say it in here. I feel like out of all of the Great Four that we're doing, the Big Four, I feel like Great Western managed to have a look that you can look at pretty much all of their locos and go, that's Great Western. depending on if you're a Steam fan or not, you might look at it and go, that looks the same as that one. That looks the same as that one. But when you really look at all of them together, you can see, oh, that's the difference. That's the difference. But I feel like you can look at this and go, that's a Great Western Freight locomotive, and it is gorgeous.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's why I went for it. I didn't even have to think about that choice. I remember the older Hornby one also had a little um, in a grain of wheat bulb in it, so it could light up the fire. And I remember my dad having it on his layout, and I always enjoyed running it um, on his layout. And it was always, even for a tender drive, I think it was a tender drive loco, it was powerful. Even then, I remember you could put a big, heavy freight train behind it, and it'd pull it around the layout fine. Um, but yeah, the Dean's Good is a nice logo, and I see what you mean with the Donald and Douglas connection. And I even think I have seen a layout and exhibition where someone used a couple of Dean's Goods as their Donald and Douglas.
Mm.
So I can see that, but in comparison, I just think the bigger the freight engine, the better they look. I don't know. I think that's my. I think if we go through my choices of freight engines, I always go for the big freight engines, which usually are the 280s, and
Mm.
you go for the 060. So there's definitely a big theme in our choices of freight engine.
We know what we like. I feel I'm going to say you've won. I, th- I love the 060, but I think the better loco is the 2800 class. Also, we have to remember you picked bar the very first round. You've got to pick every single one. So I do have to go off whatever you don't pick. I then have to go, right, what have I got left? And whilst the tank engines, there was a plethora, the I felt like the freight was a very difficult one to do.
It's yeah, it's a tough choice. I mean, I found it, even though I got to go first, I found it really hard picking on the Great Western route because everything, and particularly when we get to mixed traffic.
Yeah,
Mixed traffic, we are spoilt for choice.
they
And
are very much a jack of all trades of the big four. It seems like most of their locos can do everything.
yeah, that's. I mean, that was what made Great Western so unique was that that they were always it's still referred to today as the Western region is always the one that doesn't want to spend a lot of money, and you can tell even when I was writing the script and reading up the history of all the locos and that, you can tell the Great Western always looked at ways of saving money, mostly by rebuilding their locos,
Hmm.
swapping parts, and yeah, and obviously by building mostly mixed traffic engines, you didn't have to worry what roles they could do because they could just be utilized for anything. Although we will shock people with this. Neither of us picked a castle for any round.
Oh yeah, I hadn't even thought of that.
I thought you were going to go for it. I was like, he'll go for the castle for that round. I'm sure he will. And then no, you threw a curveball. I didn't expect it. So I think that keeps people in enough suspense. Shall we go for our mixed traffic and reveal who we've gone for?
Yes, let's go.
Right then, that was the freight round, which 2800 class has won that one. So it's 1-1. We move to mixed traffic. Sam, what have you gone for?
I have picked the 6800 Grange class. Introduced in 1936, 80 were built, designed by Charles Collett, with a wheelbase of 460, built to replace the 4300 class. The Granges were effectively a smaller wheeled version of the Hall class. The wheels, valve motion, and tenders were taken from withdrawn engines and reconditioned, and then used in the construction of the locos. A useful engine used on perishable goods trains and excursions. No locos made it to preservation, but 6880, the Betton Grange, the next loco that was due to be rebuilt, was completed and steamed this year. So a revival on that one. Models available: N gauge by Daypole, double O gauge by Hornby. James, what's yours?
So I have picked what was needed to go where the Grange couldn't go, and that is the 7800 class, also known as the Manor class loco. So these were introduced in 1938. There was 30 of them built, and they were also designed by Charles Collett, with a wheelbase of 460. These were designed as a lighter version of the Grange class, giving them a wider route availability. Like the Granges, the Manors used parts from the 4300 class. The Manors came after an urgent need to provide engines for the cross-country and branch line duties where heavier engines were banned. All the logos were constructed at Swindon Works, and 9 made it to preservation. In models, it's provided in N gauge by Dapol, in OO gauge by the Cure Scale, and also Dapol, and possibly an older Bachmann tooling, if I recall. I think which may have been the older mainline range off the top of my head, but I'd have to do a Google search of that one. But they're definitely available by those companies. So yeah, that's my mixed traffic choice. Your mixed traffic choice, and I do like a Grange. I always thought they were quite smart locos, but there's something about the manor that is really smart. I don't know. That's why I went for the manor rather than the Grange itself. But of course, we're shocking everyone by not picking a castle.
I feel like the castle is it's a great looking loco. And this is definitely the part of the Great Western where you can look at those three locos and they all have such similarities. And I think usually the thing that gives them away is usually their tender over any other part of them.
Hmm.
Um, I don't own one, but I've seen and heard the Akira scale manor, and it's gorgeous. It really is good. And this is definitely another round where if I had won the flip off, I think I would have picked the manor over the Grange, and I've gone with Grange and Castle, both lovely, gorgeous locos. But there's something about the Grange, and I think it's always whenever I see a weathered version of it, I always feel like it has this beauty. There's something about it that has that other big four look about it.
Hmm.
It's out of all of these similar locos, it definitely has a look where you can see similarities to the other big fours and a bit of inspiration from others. And I can't quite put my finger on it because when you put it next to a Great Western loco, it looks like a Great Western loco. But at the same time, if you look at it in isolation, it does have these elements that you can go, oh, that looks a little bit LNER. That looks a little bit LMS. Maybe not Southern. But out of all of the locos, it's the one that stands out as the different one. And I think that's why I picked it. But let's be honest, if you hadn't picked the manor, I would have.
Yeah, yeah. I know that because you sent me a list.
Where apparently I can't read.
Yeah. So I knew I'd won this round before I'd even written the script.
I think that's the hardest part of doing these is you have an idea in your head of what you want as your locos, and then when you get your list from the person who wins the coin flip, or let's substitute the coin flip to just saying James, you can sub. And in that instance, I was like, no, I want to pick the mana class. I think maybe if we were to redo this, we could do it where we don't tell each other what they are, and then if we both pick the same loco, nobody wins. That would have been possibly an interesting way of doing it, but
Or really boring because I reckon we would have just gone for the same logo for everything.
that's that's
We do have a
also
very
true.
similar taste.
And me trying to do my own script and research on this is not a good idea. James does all of the research and puts all of the information in on these. And if I did it, it would be a really rubbish episode for everyone on my part. James would be like, "Here's why mine should win. Here's all of the backgrounds." I would have been like, "It's available by Hornby in green and black." So yeah, it sounds like I'm folding quickly, but the Great Western was always going to be our most difficult because we both have a love of Great Western. And for those of you who don't know, although I'm a Southern boy, Great Western's always been, and harking back to the Thomas era, has always been my go-to. Whenever I looked at Steam locos when I was younger, I'd be like, "Oh, a Great Western! I want a Great Western! I want Great Western coaches! I want that brown and cream." That's the look I love, and this is always going to be the hardest one. But I think, let's be honest, the Grange is good, the Manor's better.
Yeah, the manor definitely was that improvement to the Grange, wasn't it? But yeah, I'm exactly the same because obviously I'm technically a Midlands lad. But when I grew up, my dad always used to buy the LMS and the NER locos. Very rarely did he buy anything Great Western, and I always used to be badgering him to buy certain Great Western locos, and he never did. It was always a case of wanting those engines because there was something about them. But yeah, it probably was a bit of Thomas influence there
Mm.
with Old Duck and that. But it's not a problem now. I've been up in his loft. I've seen what locos he's got. He's definitely ventured into Great Western over the years. So.
Good to know. He's
uh,
finally found the right path.
Yeah, he just needs to build his layout so we can actually go around and run his engines. But I know he's listening, so sort of if I just bully him into it on the podcast, he might get his layout built. You never know.
Sort it out, Papa Western Signalman.
That's it. Cool. Right then, that's mixed traffic then, and the manor takes that round. We'll move on to passenger class. So, Sam, that was mixed traffic. We move on to passenger. What's your choice?
Okay. So I've gone for the top of the class, the King class, or the 6,000 class. I realize whenever I say these numbers, I'm so sorry to any Steam aficionado. I say every single number differently. So let's go with the 6,000 class on this, or the 6,000. Oh, that's too many.
60,
Anyway,
100?
60,000? Yeah, let's go with 60,000. That'll really annoy people.
I think
Uh,
6,000 class sounds about right, doesn't it?
6,000 class. Now with TDI. Introduced in 1927, 31 were built. Designed by Charles Collett. It has a wheelbase of 460. Designed for express passenger work, they were excluding the unique GWR Pacific, GWR's largest locos. They handled the mainline expresses on the main line from Paddington to the West Country and the Chiltern line to Birmingham and Wolverhampton. They were withdrawn in 1962 and three are preserved. Models, it comes in N gauge by Graham Farish and Hornby in double O gauge. James, what's your choice?
Uh, yeah. So this is the other one where I noticed you picked the same year for passenger logo. That's your LNER choice. So obviously 1927 is a good year for your passenger locos. I need to go back through the scripts and see if your Southern and LMS are the same. But,
It's a good vintage. Let's go with that.
anyway, I've gone for a classic. So, and this is the loco originally suggested to be the first 100 miles per hour loco design. It's the GWR 3700 City class. They were introduced in 1903. 20 were built, designed by Churchwood, and they were a 440 wheelbase. There were 10 constructed from rebuilding the Atbata class, and 10 were built new. City of Bath was the first loco, but the most famous is City of Truro, reputed to be the first loco to go over 100 miles an hour, heading the Ocean Mail Special near Wellington. Legend has it she reached 102.3 miles per hour. Although all were withdrawn by 1991, only one, unsurprisingly, City of Truro, was preserved, and it found itself working many specials in BR's days, particularly a lot of work on the Didcot, Newbury, and Southampton line. Models in N gauge by Union Mills and an OO gauge Bachmann, in conjunction with the National Railway Museum, had produced City of Truro, and the other engines are available via Bachmann themselves, such as City of Bath. So, yeah, I did think about the more modern ones, but do you know what? I love City of Churro. I think absolutely beautiful engine. It's probably where that love of Great Western came from, because that's one of those sort of legendary stories. What was in Thomas and talked about a lot. I think when we got that episode of, in my case, it would have been the book more than the story, I suppose. But when Duck meets City of Churro, and that's probably where that love comes from. But I think they're just absolutely, the cities are just that um, pinnacle of Great Western sort of design.
It's the, I think what's great about them is it's the fact of it's got that modern look, Great Western top, and the wheels are so iconic. And to think that a 440 engine broke the 100 mile per hour speed record is insane. When you think about that and you say that out loud, it's insane. But if it did do it, what an achievement from such a weird wheel configuration. You're so used to having it where it's the 4, 8, 10 wheel configurations that are the super fast ones. If it did do it and it was the 440 Loco, what an achievement.
It must have
What
been rocking like anything.
oh, it would have been absolutely it would have it would have been rocking. And I believe in the Thomas series, the only other GWR Loco to make an appearance.
Yeah, no, I think Oliver Duck and City of Truro. So
There you go. So it has that special place in certain people's hearts.
I just think, yeah, the city class, and it's that outside frame design and the liveries when it wears sort of the older GWR livery as well, with that lovely sort of Indian red around the bottom. I think it just looks so smart.
Hmm.
But the Kings are nice.
Oh, the King is a beautiful loco, and I think whenever you look at it side on, it looks like it could take on a Flying Scotsman and win. It definitely has that big bulky. This is a a titan of steam. It definitely has that look to it. And I think one of my favorite things about it is that beautiful blue that it sits in because they have the blue version of it sat in Didcot in the sheds, don't they?
Yeah, it's King Edward II off the top of my head.
Because I remember I did a little walk around the sheds at Didcot, and I just remember it's such because it's blue rather than green. That's such a shocking, striking color for Great Western locos, and it to me it looks stunning in that livery. Um,
Yeah,
this is probably the first round where I don't know who to give it to because I think both of them have their appeal.
it is King Edward II. I have found the photo of it. It is King Edward II. Yeah, that Rail Express blue suits it really well. So much so that I know my boy loves that livery on it, and he actually bought a model of King Edward II the other day with his money for his layout. He was like instantly wanted it. So yeah, it's a tough choice. And as you say, the blue does look nice, but you know,
I'm looking between the two, and it's always whenever I'm struggling to decide, I have the two up on my screen in front of me, and I flip between the two. And I think for its iconic and individualistic look, I think it wins it. I can be quoted as previously saying there's a lot of you can look at GWR locos, and whilst there are similarities, there are slight differences between them. They do all look very samey. If you showed the King class next to the other classes that have previously been mentioned, you could easily get lost as a newbie, not understanding the differences between it. You could look at the City classes, and I'm going to say City of Truro because it's the surviving one. I think you could look at that and know that that's a City class. There's so many things about it that make it different but still show that it's a Great Western Loco. So yeah, let's go City class. I think it's a sensible win based on my own previous words.
it's that Victorian design that gives it that charm, isn't it? So yeah, I think you made the right choice there. Right then. So, as we always like to do, just before we go to our final round, we like to have what is our gamble round. So, this is what we call the would be nice to see round, where we put forward a loco we'd like to see him ready to run. So, to gamble this, a player can gamble their choice to level the final score. In fact, there's no gamble about it. If you win it, you level it, and if you don't, you don't. It's no point asking really. I mean, I was going to say, Sam, you going to gamble, but I take it you are going to gamble even if it doesn't matter.
What are we on? Is it 2-1?
3-1.
Oh, 3-1. Oh, Christ. Yeah, I'm well behind. Yeah, I've got to, haven't I? I've got to get with the chance I might win. So yeah, I'm gonna gamble it, and then you can have bragging rights if you win again.
What are you going to go for?
So my choice is the Avonside SS, the 040 saddle tank. Introduced in 1897, only two were built, designed by the Avonside Engine Company. It is an 040 wheelbase. Of the two built, fell into GWR ownership 1386, which would be numbered 1340 by the GWR and earn the name Trojan. Its first owners were Messrs. Dunn and Shute of Newport Town Dock. In 1903, it was purchased by the Alexandra Docks Railway. This was absorbed into the Great Western Railway in 1923. It was then sold by the GWR in 1932 and still exists to this day at the Didcot Railway Centre. James, what have you gone for?
So I have gone for the 3300 class, also known as Bulldogs and Birds. So they were two different names, but they were all under the same class. So they were introduced in 1899. 136 were built new and 20 were rebuilt from the Duke class. The designer was William Dean and they were of a 440 wheelbase. These locos were double framed inside cylinder locos used for passenger services. The Bird class was in development of the Bulldogs with strengthened outside frames. The last of the class was withdrawn in 1951, with all the Bird classes passing into BR ownership. None were preserved, however, the frames of 3425 survive under Earl, of which 30 Bulldogs were rebuilt, and two of number 9017, Earl of Berkeley, on the Bluebell Railway. So yeah, I kind of went for a theme there. It just going for, well, I like the city class and the outside frame, so I think the Bulldog looks pretty smart too. But I like your choice. I think that's such a cute little engine. It's just
Yes.
even though it's only one, um, it feels like it would be an unlikely loco to be made and ready to run for its limited sort of variation. But you just don't know these days, do you? It's
No, I mean, we keep getting shock stories where you do see locos like this. And if you remember, there was the Hellion um, saddle tank that had was an 060 configuration that was released a few years ago, which is slightly similar to this one. It's a cute little model, or it would be a cute little model. And I love the small tank engine side of it, and I love how different it looks. And I think it would make a really good. We talked about in our industrial loco episode, all the little shunters, the Peckets and things like that, and the what's the new Daypole one that everyone loves that I'm seriously considering buying. I can't. The name of it's gone out of my head. The Manning
the Leslie
Wardle.
Leslie Hawthorne, I think, off the
That's
top of
it.
my head.
Um, it has that same sort of similar look to it, and I think this would be a great Western addition to a layout. I think it's a very cute little engine.
It is a very cute little engine. Yeah, it's got that appeal about it. As I say, it's not very. You're kind of limited on where you can model it if you're a serious modeler. If you're just a collector of locos or you're an anything goes kind of modeler, then you're absolutely fine. Preserve Railway, you always got the excuse that the Didcot Railway Centre have lent you it, I suppose. But yeah, I just thought the Duke, the Bulldogs. So we're just again another smart Victorian outside frame loco, but then you could get into that argument. It looks like all the other Great Westerns when you compare it to the city class or something like that. But yeah, that's why I felt that it would be the Bulldog would be a good choice. But yeah, then you threw that in there. I didn't expect you to go for that one, and then I was like, yeah, do you know what? Even look at the photos, I do like that little tank engine. So I'm going to give this round to you.
Yay! Final of the Big Four battle, and we're going in level heading on the last round. I am
It's,
excited.
exactly. It's the gamble rounds finally paid off and made the end of the episode more exciting when people just switching out and going, well, James obviously won again. So
Again. I think this could be our most difficult final round. I'm going out on a
in,
limb to say.
indeed. Let's get to it and stop the suspense, I suppose. It's the anything goes round. So Sam, anything from the GWR? What have you picked?
My choice is the 4900 Hall class. Introduced in 1924 under a prototype of a Saint conversion and then introduced in 1928. 258 were built, designed by Charles Collett. There's been a theme in my episodes so far. And there's a theme with the wheelbase on the GWR. I will give them that. It's a wheelbase of a 460. With the GWR 260 loco struggling with the increasing loads, a stronger mixed traffic loco was needed. Charles Collett had the St. Class 2925 St. Martin rebuilt with 6-foot driving wheels, believing a St. Class with smaller wheels would be better suited for the work. The loco ran under trial between 1925 to 1927, with further improvements until production of the class began in 1928. The Hall class proved to be very successful and led to a modified version in which a further 71 locos were produced under the 6959 class. The most famous of these engines is Orton Hall, better known as Hogwarts Castle. Models of this are available in N gauge by Graham Farish and Daypole, and double O gauge by Bachmann and Hornby. James, what have you gone for?
So I've gone for a curveball because usually we go for a big engine to, get that anything goes round. But I've gone for something that I think is just going to pit to the post, because you can't have a Great Western layout without this engine. If you haven't got one, then there's no point. You can call it a Great Western layout. I've gone for the 5700 class pannier tank. They were introduced in 1929. 863 of them were built, which is why you'd need one for your Great Western layout, obviously. Also designed by Charles Collette and a wheelbase of 060. So these were built by the Great Western between 1929 and then up to 1950 with BR, with the, as I said, a total of 863 being built. They're the most prolific class of Great Western loco and the most numerous class of British steam locomotive. Although officially designed as a GWR light goods and shunting engines, they were also used for passenger working on branch, suburban, and shorter mainline journeys. They were distributed across most of the GWR network, and after nationalisation of the railways in 1948, across the western region of British Railways and also other regions. I think they went as far as Scotland off the top of my head. Although not as large as the GWR class or the Kings, obviously, they became as much of an icon as the GWR as those classes, due to their design and quantity. 19 locos were sold to London Transport and various industries, leading to 10 of these locos reaching preservation, with a further six saved from scrapyards. So there's 16 in total with preservation. So even in preserved days, they're still probably the most numerous of a class of engine. Model-wise, Engage, they've been produced before by Farish and also by Dapol. In OO gauge, they are available by Bachmann. Hornby have a very old tooling that sometimes pops out. And of course, a Scale will also be producing this model in OO gauge. And finally, in O gauge, they are produced by Dapol. So, yeah, I did consider the Panya for the tank round because I thought if I pick the Panya, you'll go for the 1400. It would be quite interesting to see which one you'd go for. But I did have a feeling you wouldn't back down on that 1400, and it'd just be a battle of my love for Ducky or love for Oliver. And everyone get a bit bored of our Thomas analogies and going, before we talk about real engines kind of things. But I thought I'd save it. I thought, do you know what? I'm going to save it for the Anything Goes round because I just think, yeah, as I say, you can't have a model railway of Great Western without a pannier on it.
I'd argue you can't even, in some instances, have a railway with steam without a pannier tank. I think so. Is it's the only loco that has outnumbered this is the Class 8 shunter. Is that right? Because that had nearly 1,000 built.
Probably, yeah.
So the fact that so many, I always like to look at the fact that if you look at how many of a certain loco were built, that's how well they did their job, and likewise how many have been saved into preservation. An absolutely gorgeous locomotive. It's iconic. You're completely right. The reason there's a lot of Thomas talk in this episode for James and I is because we both love the two characters that we've talked about. They are reasons we have gotten into trains. And whilst my railway doesn't necessarily match it nowadays, there is still a massive Great Western Railway pannier tank 14XX. They are still the top steam locos in my book, and I think it looks great in so many different colours. And once again, it's one of those other Great Western locos that London Transport livery, in which it looks fantastic. And a Scale have announced that they're doing the London Transport variations of it. It's so good, so good. I came in with the Hall class as a point of, I think, to non-train fans, the Hall class would definitely be up there. Nobody would know it was a Hall class. They'd just tell you it's the Hogwarts Express is their favorite train. And I think they wouldn't be wrong because once again, it looks beautiful in that red. It's iconic. It's a reason that people have gotten back into trains because of the Hogwarts Castle. You can see versions of it running in, you've got the Warner Brothers Studios in London. Also, there is a version available on in Universal Studios in Orlando. They have a Hogwarts Express ride. Now, whilst it's not necessarily an official train, they have a Hogwarts Express running, and it's very famous. But the pannier just does it. I would be picking a pannier if you hadn't picked it. I can't sit here and pretend. It's the same I said to you with the Black Five. If I didn't pick the Black Five, would you have picked it? And you said yes. And you can't argue with how your brain would work in these situations. The Hall's great. Pannia's better by a country mile.
Yeah. The whole is a lovely loco, and as you say, obviously it's got that fame of being Hogwarts Castle. And you sort of listed that there are various replicas of it out there. More controversially, Dumbleton Hall was shipped over to Japan to become Hogwarts Castle over there. Um, so if we ever see that one come back, is another question. And I do like a Hall. I think they're very nice locos. They're very smart. I think they were the inspiration for the B1 and the Black Five off the top of my head. So they were sort of, the starting point for that unique, not unique, but that pinnacle mixed traffic engine. In fact, I think even some of those Hall designs went into the BR standard design later on when Riddles was designing the standard logos for BR. So, yeah, the Hall is a very nice engine and it shouldn't be dismissed so quickly, I suppose. But yeah, the Panya tank, I think that's why I went for it. I didn't think it was going to lose. Um, if I put it in this round, I just yeah, I think it's such a great and iconic logo. And as you say, that London Transport livery on a pannier tank is so nice. It's not often that something outside of Brunswick Green looks good on a Great Western logo, but London Transport Red does.
Mm, it does. I mean, I quite like a lot of the shock horror. I've pre-ordered the Pania from Akira Scale and I've pre-ordered the Daypol 14XX, and both of them I've gone for the BR line black because I think
I,
they look really nice in that black.
yeah, I think the black suits them quite well. And yeah,
I
and
don't
the
think
line,
you'd struggle with any color on them.
no. But I wasn't too sure about that Akira Scale GWR green that they put,
The
but
Montague
apparently,
green.
yes, but apparently that's an error. So anyone worried about that, it will be corrected. So yeah, I'd spoken to a friend at work who I think had been in contact with them asking about it, and they said yeah, it will be corrected. So no need to panic there. Although there may be some Sodor modelers who might be a bit disappointed it won't be coming in that colour, but
Yeah, the repaint's a little bit too tricky.
that's it. But there we go then. That's the 5700 class taking the win, which leaves it a 3-1 to me, I'm afraid, Sam. And that's the big four covered. So
Yeah.
how about we do British Railways next time? And it'll be a little different to the other rounds because obviously there's a limited supply of BR designs, but I've got a little change to the rules, which I think should still keep things interesting. So fancy another round in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Excellent stuff. And for those of you that are worried there will be no more Thomas talk, don't worry because next week is a whole episode dedicated to it. We'll probably be losing a lot of listeners there. However, you can stay tuned for that one in a week's time because we'll be celebrating the 40th anniversary of the television series. So we won't, it'll be more serious talk than just which one's your favorite engine, although we will ask each other which one's your favorite engine. But that's next week. This was this week's. That was the 5 power. BER standards will be coming in the future. We're going to take a short break and come back with our social media shout outs.
This world we live in is a wondrous and fascinating place. We stand on the brink of greatness and a chance to make a real difference in this world. Two people who are not making a difference in the world are James and Sam. So great are their egos that you can now support them on Patreon from $5 per month to just show your support. You too can watch the model railway world burn under their narcissistic natures. Head on over patreon.com/Model Rail Replacement Podcast.
Right then, that is Sam defeated during the period of 1923 to 1948. As I say, next time will be a be our battle, and then I think we're then going to take our champions from each round and put them in a great big Royal Rumble. I think that's the plan for our fights, and then after that, who knows how we'll be fighting? But I'm sure we can find something to argue about.
Yeah, I mean, we just need something that keeps you on top, and means that you're able to still be the knowledge base and the knower of all things.
So we can have an EMU round. I'm sure you can win that one. So,
They all look the bloody same.
exactly. Don't know
I
what I'm
pick
looking at.
an EMU.
So, sorry, Danny.
Danny has officially stopped listening to the podcast. Pete's stopped listening to the podcast. Yeah, we've been cast off by big time supporters of the show.
It's all right. We'll have all the Thomas fans next week.
I do need to do a big shout out for this episode. So this episode is going live on Monday, the 30th of September, and on the Saturday and Sunday of this week, so the 5th and 6th of October, I will be at the Fareham Model Railway Club's yearly exhibition, or Fareham Railex, as they like to call it. It's at the Fareham Leisure Centre. It's a wonderful show. I've been to it a couple of years. I weathered at it last year. They are an exceedingly good club. The people who work there work tirelessly. They are lovely people. And this year they've invited me down to do some weathering at the show. I will be in the main hall this year next to my friend Danny from Various Multiple Units. So you will get to see as many EMUs and DMUs knocking about, and then you can see me making them disgustingly filthy, much to some people's dismay and some people's joy. But yes, we will be there. And as always, I will be doing a weather whilst you wait service. So if you have some stock that you would like weathering quite cheap with the airbrush, I will be doing my usual show special of doing cheap weathered rolling stock with an airbrush at the show. So make sure you bring that down as well.
There we go. Yeah, that's a show for people around the Portsmouth area. Then is that right?
Yeah, so Fareham is halfway, or it's in between Southampton and Portsmouth. So it's one of those places where I think it's easy to get to for anywhere in that sort of region. Especially if you're sort of mid Hampshire or something like that. It's quite an easy place to get to. And it's not Portsmouth, it's not Southampton. So you get, depending on where you go, it's either a PO postcode or an SO postcode, and you can pick that. But the leisure
There we
centre is
are
lovely as
then.
well.
Excellent stuff. So there we are. No excuses if you're in the area. It's a nice show for you. And it is model railway exhibition season. So if you have got a exhibition that you'd like us to shout out, please just contact us and we will do our very best to get it announced before the date. So, yeah, obviously we've got the likes of Getz and the Great British Model Railway Show coming up in October. But obviously people should be known about them. They're the big ones. So, yeah, if you're a smaller one and you want to shout out, just let us know and we will let other people know, I suppose. Right then, talking of shout outs, so we shout out some social media.
Yeah, so this week I am going for 71D Productions. Now, Zach is more active on his Instagram. Zach is a local boy. I see him at shows as well, and he does some really good videos of trains and does a lot of train spotting. He also has a layout. There's lots of different bits that are going on. One of my favorite things, and one of the reasons I want to give Zach a shout out, is I wasn't able to attend the Watercress Diesel Gala this year, which is usually something that I go to every single year, and sadly I missed out on it this year. But Zach filmed the Diesel Gala, and watching it made me feel like I was there. And Zach does such a good job of filming, taking photos, and stuff like that. So if you want to see some of the videos that he gets, have a look at his YouTube. If you want to see some of the fantastic photos that he takes with his camera, then you can also have a look at his Instagram. That's 71D Productions.
Awesome stuff. Sounds very good. I do believe I already follow him on Instagram, so I recognise the name. So, yeah, get yourself along and have a look at that one. For myself, I'm going to shout out Peter Harrison on YouTube. Now, it's probably best to find him if you Google Peter Harrison Trains, alternatively, Peter Harrison 6230. That's his @ handle on YouTube. Because otherwise, if you just put Peter Harrison in, as I found just before preparing for the show, you get all sorts of nonsense come up in the search. So, yeah, just point it out that way. But video-wise, he hasn't done one in a while, but these are absolutely splendid videos of his layout, Lowly, and they are narrated, I'm assuming, by his wife, as it describes the ongoings of the line, what's happening, which train's going where, and it sort of tells a story through the day or various different activities on the branch line. They're absolutely brilliant videos, really entertaining, really enjoyable to watch. So I would suggest, finding Peter Harrison and his layout, Lowly.
Fantastic. I've given it a little follow, and I look forward to watching those videos when I next get the chance.
Excellent stuff. Well, that only leaves our final thing that we always do, which people are probably sick of hearing by now. But, until we get 10,000 subscribers on our YouTube and Instagram, we're going to keep doing it. So, Sam, how can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at emperors_path, or you can find me on YouTube at Emperors Path. James, if they want to get hold of you, how can they get hold of you?
Well, firstly, I've changed my mind. I want 100,000 subscribers. And secondly, YouTube is Western Signalman. Instagram is Western Signalman. Or if you want to email, it's westernsignalman@outlook.com. But don't forget that the Model Rail Replacement Podcast does have an Instagram account, and it's, as you might expect, Model Rail Replacement Podcast. Or alternatively, if you want to email us with anything you might want to share with us or let us know about, including your exhibition shout outs, etc., it's Model Rail RP. That's Model Rail Romeo Papa @outlook.com. Well, that wraps us up for this show. As I say, next week we are going to be talking Thomas the Tank Engine as we celebrate 40 years of that. But until then, all I say is that hopefully we've been entertaining, informative, and have replaced your model railway, if only just for a little bit. I've been James, and with me it's been Sam. Thanks for listening.
This service terminates here. Please ensure you take all of your personal belongings with you.